Good evening. It's 12:12 a.m. on December the 4th of 2023. So I woke up and I went over here to Pentagon press briefings, and I click into this video, and it's a forum, and the general was asked, is there Chinese malware? Is there evidence of Chinese malware in U.S. critical infrastructure? There was a warning back in around spring of 2023 about it, and had to get in there. How would it get in there, you all? Chinese malware in U.S. critical infrastructure? That is a question. I know a lot of the military contracts out a lot of their stuff to contractors which have access to some branches. But critical infrastructure, let me look at that. Yeah, you all, this is like wild. It is a little bit wild. This may not be a video for you. It just may not. This is the Reagan Foundation, and it is a panel of defense secretaries is what it is. I'm just going to play a little bit of it. I want you to hear what he had to say about it. Let me turn my cell phone down. Let me do this. Go back here. Turn it down. That's what I'm going to do. That has widespread ramifications if they are in critical infrastructure. Let me do this right here. I know this video is not going to get very many views because of the topic of it, but I am going to go over to it. Hello, I'm just going to flip it. Okay, we got it going on. We do. So, malware embedded into U.S. infrastructure. First, we want to read what is U.S. infrastructure. What is it? Infrastructure. Infrastructure. All right, we're going to look at. Let's get some images of it. What would critical infrastructure be? Well, we got roads. That's one of them. Let's see about this right here. Yeah, it's just like highways, streets, water supply, transportation, sewer, water, and power. So they could take the grid down. They could take the grid down. They could take the water supply, the water companies, the sewer companies down. Hello, everyone. You're so welcome. So this is U.S. infrastructure. Did I put on here critical infrastructure? No, I just said U.S. infrastructure right here. You're so welcome. I'm having a hot flash up here, you all. I don't know if you can see it, but this is what infrastructure is considered. Transportation industry, highways and streets, water supply, power, and sewer and water, and any other thing. Protecting our critical infrastructure. We have hazardous liquid and natural gas pipelines. It's infrastructure also. Oh, my nose is starting to itch. Hello. That's infrastructure. I'm going to see if I can find any other examples of infrastructure. Let me see if I can come over here. Infrastructure plan for America. Okay, well, they got a plan for it. Don't know how they'll rebuild it, but they got one. See, here's part of the electricity. That's infrastructure right there. Infrastructure there. Oh, here's some more. Thematic ideas. This is infrastructure. Roads, bridges, electricity, schools, waterways, airports, rail, water, wastewater, public parks, recreation, infrastructure. Just a little bit of examples. Here's some more right here. This is infrastructure. Basically, you can have a shutdown, a complete. I remember Yuval Harari say, stop economic growth and you stop global warming. If they attack the infrastructure, everything will shut down. They're probably already in all of these right here. Malware. Okay, you all. Hello. We on here? Yeah, we on here, you all. Let's come over here because we got the guy up on here. Let's see what he's going to look like. I got to make sure that you can hear him when I push the button. Is what I've got to make sure of. I don't know how it's going to work, and I do not want I don't want a echo. So we'll see if we can hear him. I'm going to have to turn this on. He's sitting there just like that.
In the Indo-Pacific region, where they had positioned capabilities that we did not think were solely for intelligence gathering. So the question becomes, why are you in that critical infrastructure? I think the important piece is, what are we doing about it? And what we're doing about it is very similar to what we're doing with...
Okay, that's not good either. I have to get it. I haven't used this in a long time. That's not good either. I have not used this in a long time. How am I going to do this? This is wild. I know it's not, maybe it's the video capture device. I got to try to find if I can figure it out, you all. Let me push him on here. I have to get it. I haven't used this in a long time. I have not used this in a long time. How am I going to do this? This is wild. I know it's not, maybe it's the video capture device. I got to try to find if I can figure it out, you all. Let me push him on here. I have to get it. I haven't used this in a long time. I can't figure it out. I cannot figure it out, you all. I cannot figure out how on earth to get him on here speaking with this studio. This is wild. It's so wild. Let me come over here to the advanced properties. Audio output. Okay, I might be able to get it, y'all. Let me try it. Right, I'm going to see if I'm going to get it. Let's push his button again. Let's see if we can push him and get him to talk. Let me see it. I have not used this in a long time. How am I going to do this? This is wild. I know it's not, maybe it's the video capture device. I got to try to find if I can figure it out. We gotta wait, y'all, see if I can do it. I can't figure it out. I cannot figure it out, you all. I cannot figure out how on earth to get studio. We gotta wait. I'm having a hot flash up here. Let's push his button again. Let's see if we can push him and get him to talk. It's not happening. I cannot get him to talk, you all. I can't. I cannot get this brought up on here because I don't know how I'm going to do it. This is wild. I don't know how to get it done, which is not very nice at all. I know you all cannot hear it. at all. But I can't hear it. I don't have the speakers on. I want to try to. Can't get it. I'm not going to play it if it's not good quality. But they are talking about the Chinese embedding malware into the infrastructure. And she keeps asking him about it. And he kind of beats around the bush, and he does not come straight out and say that there is evidence of that happening in the infrastructure. That's what's going on. Oh, I can do it? I can do it. Let me see, you all. I'm trying to do it. I wonder if I brought him over here and stuck him on here with me. If I could do a window capture device, I might be able to. Let's see it. It's been really a long time since I did it. I want to see. Did it. Let me see if I can get him talking. We're going to try it again. I have no idea. I don't. This is wild. Cannot get them on there for the life of me. It's just cannot get them on there for the life of me. Oh, okay. They just
It's a policy matter to the Chinese Communist Party that we can and will do this as well and take a mutually assured destruction approach. Because, you know, the old kind of, do we start flicking the lights in Beijing and send a very strong signal on our offensive capabilities to therefore, I mean, we're having that same conversation in space, in that new fighting domain as well. I personally believe, and the general knows far more than I do, that we can only play so much defense, right? I mean, we can't bat 1,000, and that we have to really look at some paradigm shifts on making them understand that this would be mutually assured destruction if they went down nuclear warfare.
Right.
So we have given indicators in terms.
We realize how interdependent we are economically, whether it's energy, food, or shipping or elsewise with our southern hemisphere neighbors.
General Akasoni, a couple of months ago, you put out a warning about some potential Chinese malware that may have infiltrated U.S. infrastructure. Does the U.S. currently have evidence that China has right now pre-positioned malware?
We got it.
Inside U.S. critical infrastructure, and why? Well, are they just waiting to use it? I mean, how big a threat is that?
We did talk about this in the spring of 2023, where we said we see Chinese activities in a number of different networks, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region, where they had positioned capabilities that we did not think were solely for intelligence gathering. So the question becomes, why are you in that critical infrastructure? But I think the important piece is, what are we doing about it? And what we're doing about it is very similar to what we're doing with General Richardson, is how do we stay engaged? How do we have a series of partnerships? We in the
This is critical infrastructure. This is bigger than regular infrastructure, critical infrastructure.
Hemisphere have sent 2 different hunt forward teams, a defend forward capability that allows us to, at the request of a foreign government, see if there are adversaries on their networks, and then be able to ensure that those adversaries no longer are able to stay there. That's a part of the partnering piece that I think we have to bring, not only as an all-star team, but as a consistent, persistent engagement with our friends and allies in the region.
But
they take control of they hold your infrastructure hostage unless you pay up, unless you do what they tell them to do. That's, they just get in there. It's like a virus. Let's look up the definition of malware. It's all digital. It's, are we on here? I'm going to come over here. Malware is any software that is intentionally designed to cause disruption to a computer, a server, a client, a computer network, leak private information, gain unauthorized access to information or systems, deprive access to information, or which unknowingly interferes with the user's computer security and privacy. So that's malware. They take control. They get inside the systems. Totally inside the systems. Yeah. So that's what it is. If you are just tuning in, we're supposed to be over there. It's just cold. It's cold, you all. He's talking. She's going to ask him again. She's going to ask him again about the malware, because he didn't answer the question. He beat around the bush, you all. So, yeah, he wanted to beat around the bush, the general did. And, yes, like election. Well, we can't talk about that, Sonia, but they'll shut this down. Yeah. I'm just saying, any kind of electric, whatever. Let's listen to this, you all.
Yeah, I mean, is there now evidence that they actually are infiltrating U.S. critical infrastructure today, right now, or is it? I mean, beyond the warning that you put out in May, are they physically inside U.S. infrastructure?
So we have given indicators in terms of this is the type of activity that the Chinese are conducting in a number of different activities.
Oh, they just admitted these are the activities that the Chinese are conducting. He just admitted it. It's okay, Sonia, honey. He just admitted it.
Throughout the world, and that systems administrators and those.
Did you see that green pop up on the screen? I'm wondering if everything is a green screen. I really am. When I clicked that, it looked like the behind him was a green screen, just like it's behind me.
That run computer organizations should be very cautious about.
And you're confident that the U.S., whether it's the government or private industry, is able to detect that before it could potentially be?
We do, and I think that's one of the really good news stories that we've been able to do is how do you work with a series of partners, both public and private, to be able to say this is what our adversaries are doing, and we should be very worried about it, and not necessarily.
He just told you this is what our adversaries are doing, so they are aware. They're more or less admitting that the Chinese has. What was the thing? What have they done? They have put malware embedded in they've embedded malware in U.S. infrastructure. They are admitting it, you all. This is wild. Green screen, yeah, you seen it.
Classified channels, but how do we talk about this, to the world?
Joe, how can private industry work with the U.S. government on this problem?
Well,
are they doing enough? I mean, is there enough coordination?
This has been I think a positive trend over the last several years, where it used to be that the companies that would run the cyber infrastructure for the most advanced technology companies, most advanced banks, and others would have almost no role in the U.S. government, and there'd be entirely different companies that were winning all of the contracts from the U.S. government. And it's kind of like, it's like the animals that would evolve on like the Galapagos Island. If you put them on the mainland, they would be slaughtered because so that's kind of how the government technology was for a long time. And fortunately, in the last few years, you are starting. And that's a little too glib. If you go back to the 1970s, 1980s, the NSA was way ahead of private industry. By the way, I mean I grew up in an era where in computer science, where the NSA would do something, and then the academics would figure out like 20 years later why they were doing it. And so there were, I think if you go to the mid-century, there was the very best and brightest technology there.
Embedded means it's hidden. It's woven in, hidden deep within. It could be deep within the different layers of that infrastructure. Deep within the different layers, because there's not just one core thing. Oh no, there's layers upon layers upon layers upon layers to the infrastructure with programs and.
And I think what happened.
And the general knows far more than I do that we can only play so much defense, right? I mean, we can't bat 1,000, and
I know
we
he
have
had
to
web
really
fingers,
look at
yeah.
some paradigm shifts on making them understand that this would be mutually assured destruction.
Is that Jeb Bush?
If they went down that road as a preventative measure to hopefully prevent them from doing that.
General Nakasone, you've sort of overseen what has been a shift from more defensive to some offensive cyber operations, or at least acknowledging that the U.S. is conducting them over the last 5 or 6 years, now 5 years. Can you give us any sense of how much of your cyber operations are offensive versus defensive right now?
Yeah, so I think it's better to think about it in the thought process of an entire persistent engagement spectrum. So everything you can do from defense to effects-based operations is something that we can do today. And I'm very confident in terms of not only being able to see the threat, but also being able to react to the threat, but also our adversaries knowing that we have incredible capabilities that, if the president determines that's necessary, that we would be able to utilize them. So that whole perspective in terms of having a full spectrum operation is something we need to do. But the other thing is that, and I think Joe touches on this very well, it's with a series of partners. This is the interesting part of the domain where 95% of our critical infrastructure is with the private sector. Being able to operate with the private sector, that's what we can do, and this is what we've shown.
Did you hear that? 95% of the military's critical infrastructure is with the private sector. The private sector. Wow. The private sector. In critical, U.S. critical infrastructure. CRITICAL. Oh, fix that, you all. Boom. 95% of it. That is wild. They won't be able to operate because they need electricity at the military bases too. They do. They need water. They need gas. They need it all. This would literally, it would shut down.
Over the past several years.
One piece of critical infrastructure.
Courtney, on that, I mean, the Russians and the Chinese have unleashed their, and I put in air quotes, private sector, often offensively.
Yeah.
I mean, our companies are coming to us and saying we are under a deluge, a tsunami of ransomware attacks. And so, but yet that offensive capability on our end is reserved in the government space, heck, is reserved in the Title X space. And so back to kind of Joe's analogy of the Galapagos, do we have, if we unleash Silicon Valley forward, or they believed that we could, I mean, that is a very different conversation with all kinds of ramifications. I get that. But that's kind of where, from an oversight and a policy standpoint on the Intel Committee, those are the questions I'm asking. In mutually assured destruction, it was very clear what each side could do to each other. Yeah. I don't know that our adversaries believe that we have the capability and the will to unleash that.
Hello there, young Nephilim.
And therefore keep the peace. And that's, I think, a question we need to continue to ask of ourselves. We see on radar coming by air or by sea towards our coastline, we only have the assets to intercept 10% of them. That's 90%.
Did you hear that? If they see something coming through the air or by sea, they only have the capacity to intercept 10% of what's coming. Oh, we got to hear what he had to say. That's wild. Oh, hope I didn't mess it up.
One peer competitor under the grips of China. Of course, I'd prefer them to be in the United States, but let's start incentivizing foreign investment into Central and South America through different types of incentive programs. But when the only solution to get at the root causes is to spend $4 billion, when we know that between corrupt governments and the cartels, they take anywhere to 30 to 40% off the top, do the math, you're actually fueling financially through our foreign aid packages often the very thing that we're trying to fight against. So I think there's a lot of things we could do, and I give General Richardson a lot of credit. Her and her team do so much with so little. We are constantly fighting for her place within, and that's not as much of a dig on the Defense Department as it sounds. I mean, they're stretched all over the world. But I do think we need to make Southcom much more of a priority. And then final piece, look, it's not just our 2,000-mile southern border. We have a 95,000-mile coastline. And currently, of the things that we see on radar coming by air or by sea towards our coastline, we only have the assets to intercept 10% of them. That's 90% left unchecked.
95,000 miles of coastline. They can only have the capacity to intercept 10% that is coming, and 90% is left open. They cannot intercept it. Wow.
Coming into across the Caribbean or southeastern United States or into California's southern coast. So it is, right now I think there's some policy changes, but there's also just a total dearth of resources that we should rethink.
Do you think there's an appetite for an AUMF right now for that?
Well, there's, flattery or what is it? I don't know, imitation's the best form of flattery. I can tell you when we see the presidential candidates, at least on my side of the aisle, saying that that would be first and foremost in their new administration, then I think so. Total dearth of resources that we should rethink.
Do you think there's an appetite for an AUMF right now for that?
State of the art that we are still using and that they've been using. And, you know, it's
we have, and this has been an ongoing fight.
From this region. Over 30% of the sugar, beef.
Well, let's hear her.
Right, it is not a, it's a,
wanna hear what she has to
political
say.
and leadership issue, not a technology issue.
General Richardson, we only have a few minutes left. You testified that 42 of the 50 most violent cities in the world are in your AOR a couple of months ago. What's the biggest contributor to that? And how does that have a direct impact on North America? I mean, does aggression lead to aggression?
I think it absolutely does, and and I would chalk that up to the transnational criminal organizations and that huge diversified portfolio. More powerful, the $300 billion annual revenue per year. We have got to get after that, but quite honestly, like our strategic competitors, the People's Republic of China, Russia that's in the hemisphere as well, the TCOs, this region is very rich in resources, and they have all very rich in resources.
Can you all hear this?
Discovered that. And that's why the investment through the Belt and Road Initiative, I mean, we've got the 60% of the world's lithium in the lithium triangle is in this region. PRC gets 75% of its lithium from this region. Gold, copper, light sweet crude that was discovered off the shores of Guyana. That's the fastest growing economy projected for the next 5 years at 25% GDP growth. Heavy crude in Venezuela. But you have this huge irregular migration problem right now. And the numbers are unprecedented and they continue to grow every year. But because of this, families are on the move and it's only predicted to increase. So with the potential, I'll go to back to the resources of the region. Over 50% of the soybean in the globe is from this region. Over 30% of the sugar, beef, corn is coming from this region. How do we help this region reach a potential to feed and fuel the world? About 10 years ago, there was a lot of talk about this region being able to do that. Now there's not so much talk about that. But when you talk about these resources that are there, and we ask ourselves why the investment in all of the critical infrastructure by our strategic competitor, the People's Republic of China. So why is that? Well, the resources are there. This megaport that the PRC is building right now north of Lima, Peru, will take off 15 days to get food. They get 36% of their food from this region. It'll take 15 days off of that transit time, from 35 days down to 20. They won't have to go to Mexico or go to San Diego before they go to China. Now it'll be just a direct shot. Why is that? That's the PRC's plan, the gateway to Asia. But where are we coming up with the alternative solution for all of the critical infrastructure? Why are we not competing on the contracts and the tenders that these countries put out? Why is it only the PRC that's doing that? How are we mobilizing Team USA to come forward and to compete for these contracts? And I would say with the administration's announcement of the APEP, American Partnership for Economic Prosperity, where 12 Latin American leaders were brought to the White House on the 3rd of November. And so, billions of dollars being channeled through the Inter-American Development Bank and the Developmental Finance Corporation into the hemisphere, specifically for critical infrastructure, is huge. It's a start. But we got to do more, we got to double down, and we got to see the importance of this regional hemispheric security doctrine that we need to put our foot on the gas and double down, and it's a call to action. So
you mentioned Guyana, and I'm going to take a question from here so that I don't get voted worst moderator for not taking a question from the audience. Someone asked about Venezuela. Looks like they might forcibly annex territory from neighboring country, Guyana. How would regional partners respond to this, and how would this impact U.S. interests in the region? I know there was the ICJ and
so, but
very, very severe, and on all of their networks. I mean, you're talking the financial institutions, the healthcare. I mean, nothing is being spared, and it's very sporadic. It's with a lot of our countries, and so cyber and being able to protect themselves and their governments. I mean, we're really talking about sovereignty. Countries are very, very proud and very, very strong on their sovereignty for their nations. But the cyber is a whole different ballgame, because there aren't alarm bells that go off in some cases until that your data has been snatched, and then you're trying to, it's like a kidnap for ransom, right? And you're having to pay some kind of a fee or whatever. And the billions of dollars in fees that are having to be paid right now. I'll just refer back to the 60 Minutes interview with our FBI Director Wray and the Five Eye intelligence chiefs, all coming together about a month ago doing an unprecedented interview, talking about the importance of what the People's Republic of China is doing, stealing data. It's the #1 global espionage threat to democracy that democracy has ever faced in our entire history. If you have not watched it, I recommend you watch that 10 or 15-minute interview, talking about our data, talking about how companies, our U.S. companies, and might not be interested in geopolitical activities, but geopolitical entities are interested in you. And in order to protect our national security, we have got to work as a team, and we have got to put national security at the forefront, because our data is being stolen.
I normally would never recommend watching anything but NBC News, but actually I agree the 60 Minutes spot was pretty good. Joe, did you want to add
when we were at PayPal early on, this is like 20, 21 years ago, before it sold to eBay, and the Chinese and Russian mafia literally then, and these weren't necessarily state actors, these were independent actors that were kind of sanctioned by the state. They were stealing like tens of millions of dollars a year from us, hundreds of millions of dollars a year from the sector. They made a bunch of our competitors go bankrupt, and this was a very profitable thing in those countries. And when we found people stealing from us in the US, you'd work with either the Secret Service or the FBI, the two branches in charge of that, and you'd arrest them and you'd take care of it. When we found them there and we report to the governments, it was very clear they're being protected by their governments. And what's very frustrating to me is that you have very clear criminals based in those countries, caught red-handed stealing from us, clear evidence, and our government would do nothing from a foreign policy perspective to say, by the way, stop stealing from us, stop doing this, we're going to sanction you, we're going to punish you, we're going to do something to hurt your country for doing this. And that still seems to be the case today, that when our countries are stolen from by these actors in those countries, which, by the way, at this point we have lots of evidence that China has actually been creating groups of hackers and helping them do this. So it's like semi-state sanctioned these days, and we'll find evidence, yet we still have these like trade agreements with China, and there's no punishment of China, and it's very confusing to me why we lack leadership from the top of our country to like hit them back and deter these activities. We just lack that leadership.
Do you
That was right in their face. That is in their face. They're not doing anything about it, he said. Nothing. They weren't doing anything about it 10 years ago, and the government ain't doing nothing about it now, today. You are what they just told. This, you got defense sector right here. They're not doing nothing about it. Nothing. Why? Why? That's wild. It's really wild when you have, and you have the FBI going on too. 60 Minutes, FBI, CIA, or whoever it was, about China. Yeah. That's right. We've been compromised. White rabbit. Let me mute myself again.
Why do you think that is?
We got a promise in 2013 from Xi that he would stop. I couldn't resist.
So if I might, I think that it's also, we should talk a little bit about what has changed over the past 5 years. This idea of persistent engagement. How do we persistently engage with our adversaries? not episodic, not when we think we need to strike them hard, but every single day. And this is where we need to enable and act our partners. So it's the FBI, it's Secret Service, it's the State Department. It's being able to bring these different levers of our government to bear. As I mentioned, working with General Richardson, being able to deploy teams when a foreign country asks, hey, we need some assistance. You know, being there matters, and showing up with a team from Cybercom to say, we're here to help you, is the way that we do business today. And I think that it's also the ability to share.
This isn't fear propaganda, what they're saying. This is actually real world things. And somebody had a really good question in here. White Rabbit, what could possibly go wrong with making all the computers in a dictatorship? Well, there was a lady with the World Economic Forum when they was talking about technology and the computers and stuff. If we get it wrong, we will have the worst dictatorship the world has ever known, because the computers will take over if we get it wrong. So there's no fear here whatsoever. This is real world. It's happening. We have moved into the digital age where you have no control. You really don't at times. It's going to get to the point where you don't have control. Someone else does. Something else does. So no fear propaganda here at all. They're telling the truth. What's been, how it led up to where it is now.
Share information rapidly, right? It's being able to tell the private sector that, hey, there are the vulnerabilities right here. This is a much more nuanced approach that we have to take to a very difficult problem. This isn't always a nation state. It could be non-nation state actors. It could be hacktivists. It could be a number of different proxies. We need a very sophisticated strategy, which we're operating now, to be able to campaign against them at all times.
General Nakasone, we're another critical infrastructure piece that we haven't talked about is the elections. We're at T-minus 11-ish months away from the presidential election. You may still be in the job at that point. I don't know. Senator Tuberville's not here, so we're not sure if you're going to be able to retire or not. But have you seen any attempts against to influence the 2024 elections yet? And are you able to say whether the U.S. is engaged in any offensive operations already to preempt them?
Yeah, here's what I can say. We haven't seen any of the attempts to answer your question first off, but we're not waiting. We've already at Cybercom and the NSA put together our election security group, which is our fourth election going back to 2018. And our strategy hasn't changed. We're going to gather intelligence, we're going to share information, and we're going to take action. And in terms of taking action, that means everything from being able to provide, unclassified reports of what our adversaries are doing, to be able to work with a series of partners to be able to take down infrastructure that might be harmful to our democratic process. I'm very confident as we operate part of a broader government team operating outside the United States that we'll have impact again.
I want to go to another thing that was brought up as one of the biggest threats to the hemisphere, and that's drugs, the flow of drugs from across the southern border.
Over here. And you can look at their videos that they got. You can go over to the defense.gov and you can look at this video in its entirety. It's 51 minutes long. They're talking about the drugs now at the southern border. I won't play any more, but there is a valid concern here of what's taking place when it comes to critical infrastructure. It would even, airports, everything, schools, you name it, it could be brought completely down, everything. Yeah. It's been wrong. Elise, honey. Yeah, backdoors, that's right, backdoor Trojans, remember that? Backdoor Trojans to get in. Yeah, it's wild. It's really, really wild. This should have been on the news. That defense, Reagan National Defense thing should have been on the main news. It should, to let the people know what they're talking about. How do you know that they are telling the truth? How do you know that they're not telling the truth? How do you know that? Our infrastructure is really intertwined with AI. And computers. It's big time modernized, and it's not done being modernized. Yeah. You quit ordering off of Facebook too. Too many fake porn sites. There's all kinds of things, you will. There really is. I'm trying to figure out if that guy on the one side was Jeb Bush or whoever he was. He looks like that one guy looks like a
Congressman Waltz, and what the goals seem to be.
Computer organizations should be very cautious about.
And you're confident that the U.S., whether it's the government or private industry, is able to detect that before it could potentially be.
We do, and I think that's one of the really good news stories that we've been able to do is how do you work with a series of partners, both public and private, to be able to say this is what our adversaries are doing, and we should be very worried about it, and not in necessarily, classified channels, but how do we talk about this, to the world?
Joe, how can private industry work with the U.S. government on this problem?
Well,
are they doing enough? I mean, is there enough coordination?
That's it. You all, let me get them off of there. Let me get him off of there. He's done said too much. I'm getting rid of that window capture. So they have embedded things in the infrastructure, critical infrastructure, malware embedded. Yeah. You can take the internet down too. You won't have no internet. You won't. It's like critical infrastructure. White Rabbit, who knows what the future holds, really? We don't know. We don't know. And then the FBI, 60 Minutes. The FBI, 60 Minutes. Oh. Here, if you look over here. CBS News. I don't even know if this was on. Look at this. More than Five Eyes intelligence chiefs warning to 60 Minutes. 5 intelligence chiefs. I never heard of the Five Eyes at all. Formed after World War II to gather intelligence. The Five Eyes, this is really strange, is made up of the U.S., the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Domestic intelligence directors from each country. FBI director made their first joint public appearance, warning China is conducting an ongoing global espionage campaign. There is no country that presents a broader, more comprehensive threat to our ideas and innovation or economic security and ultimately our national security. They'll do it from the inside out. The inside out. They got to work together. Okay, they got to work together, you all. That's all we're going to say. It's not the people themselves. It's what's being done. Yeah. Oh, the Thousand Eyes. The upper echelon should get some assets in Global Corps. They should. The future will be great. People will take a lot to wake up. It will. It'll take a whole lot to wake up. It really will. 43 minutes. I need to get off here and see if I can go back to sleep. That's what I need to do. So, there's Six Eyes too. Sweden controlling the 5. Wow. Never heard of that before. Really didn't. The Five Eyes. Whitney Webb. Some Israeli company is providing security for our internet, water systems, and dams, to name a few. People from other countries also work for them, indeed, by the U.S. government. Yeah, contracted out. Contracted out. Everything's contracted out. Our other countries got their stuff contracted out. All you need is that to happen, and they can get in. Lucifer Starfire Bank. The video is on your channel. Wow. Okay. I'm trying to make that happen. You don't watch the news. Turn on the TV. 2 years, they're not announcing the outbreak in China. It's here in the States. I think I was saying something about that it spread here, Deborah Lyra. Yeah. Only 2 or 3 videos. Sonia, honey, what you talking about? Their way of shutting it down. Yeshua. You may be right. You may be right. Stop economic growth and you stop global warming. That came from one of the mouthpieces of the WEF. Yuval Harari. That's right. Yeah. Oh, okay. You got it at the doctor appointment. Oh, wow, Deborah, honey. That's interesting, you all. There is something going around. Oh, you're so welcome, Penny, honey. You got to go to bed. That's right. I normally wouldn't be on here, but I was so exhausted. I just went to bed. I was in that bed at 8 o'clock. I thought, I'm not getting out of that bed. I'm going to lay here. I'm going to try to go to sleep. Yeah. So this is, was there any evidence of Chinese embedded malware in the U.S. critical infrastructure? The answer was yes. And 95, did the general say 95% of the critical infrastructure that they use is with the private sector? 90% or 95, and that we have 95,000, see why they say 95,000 miles of shoreline, that if there was something coming in toward the United States, they would only they have the capability of only stopping 10%. The rest of it is going to get away. That's where AI comes in. That's where the UAPs come in. They will patrol everything. I mean, he just said 95,000 miles of shoreline. It's impossible to have the manpower, the ships and stuff to do it, but AI can. With those drones, they can monitor everything. So that's what they were talking about earlier this year at the on the Pentagon press briefing with their new agency new position they had made with the UAP, the drones, with artificial intelligence, eyes in the sky. AI is run by whom? That's a really good question, Sunshine, for me, for you. Well, they say there will always be a human hand involved, but that's a really good question. Who is it ultimately run by? I'm sure it has a mainframe. A mainframe would be a main entity. The mainframe is where it originates from. Yeah. Start studying the Russian and Chinese alphabet. Oh, that's really hard. Kanji is so hard. It's so hard to read. And some of the Japanese writing has kanji in it too. It's really, really hard. A lot of people are a little bit too old for that now, but they got technology that can do that for us, read everything for us and decipher it. That's right. It's self-aware. I think it is self-aware. I really do think it's self-aware. It's already woken up. They know it's woken up. That's right. I am going to go. I am. So thank you all for tuning in. And with that being said, hello, wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello, from my heart to yours. Love you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. I want to see who all was here at this. We had the Army General Paul Nakasone, the U.S. Cyber Command Director of the National Security Agency, Army General Laura Richardson, Commander of the U.S. Southern Command. I don't know who the one guy was. He looked like Jeb Bush, but it probably wasn't. He did look like he had some kind of President Bush feature.
Assets like
He looked like he has President Bush features on him. He looks like he's part of the Bush family. Look at the face features.
I want to start with
They didn't have very many people.
With a strong caveat, no one
He looks like he really does.
is talking about.
That's all who was there. It got very little press, very little attention. Very, very little. You ever see the movie Warhammer? Or you ever hear of the books Warhammer? Okay, his head is cut off, y'all. This guy's head is cut off. His head is cut off as he's walking across the screen. You ever hear the book series Warhammer? Mars attacks. I don't know if this is real. I mean, it might be. It might not be. It's okay, you all. We don't want to get into it. His head looks totally fake back here. Look at his ears. Yeah. Warhammer. Warhammer was... What is this? They don't got no face. They really don't got a face. There's something going on with this thing. There was a green screen that showed up when I was clicking on the video, or the green screen showed up behind them. But let's look up Warhammer really fast. Warhammer series. Hammer book series. What's it about? I'm going to show you this. It's very dark reading, very, very dark. It's fictional. It really is. It's where you're living in a world where the computers have already taken over. They totally took over. And they're trying to stop it. I can't, if you like to read, you might want to get something like that. Because it's like, I mean, I guess, it's dark. I don't read it. I don't read it. Warhammer. What is Warhammer about? I'm going to do this. About. What is it about? No, it was a book. It was a book. I'm not going to read it. Okay, I'm not. This is distracting for me. I couldn't even tell you it if I wanted to. I couldn't. I'm going to go, you all. Did I already say it? Yeah. White Rabbit, that Skynet, like was in Arnold Schwarzenegger. I remember hearing about that. It was used by some school systems back in around 2004 when I first moved back here. There were some school systems that used the Skynet. Yeah. A boy and his dog. Research in the Bible, and you need to read the Bible more. Yeah, that's right. All right, you all, we got to get off of here. We have got to go to bed. It's 1:05 in the morning. We are. You caught me up at a odd time of a day, which is great. It's wonderful. Computers took over. That's right, Brandy, honey. They did. That's all right. It's fine in the big scope of our life. Yeah. Have a wonderful evening, you all. And thank you for tuning in. Love you. Good night.